The kitchen felt different that Tuesday morning, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. Maybe it was the way my 8-year-old grandson Tommy had barely looked at me when I offered to make his favorite chocolate chip pancakes, or how he'd quietly asked his father if he could eat cereal instead. The rejection stung more than it should have, especially since Tommy usually lit up whenever I visited my son's house. "Everything okay, buddy?" I asked, ruffling his sandy brown hair as he poured milk into his bowl. He shrugged without meeting my eyes, and something cold settled in my stomach. "Before we dive into this unbelievable tale, please like and subscribe. I read every comment, so tell me where you're from." My name is Katherine Graham. I'm 56 years old, and I've always prided myself on having close relationships with my grandchildren. That's why Tommy's sudden distance felt so wrong. I'd been watching him and his younger sister Emma every Tuesday while their parents worked, and we'd developed our own little traditions. Story time, baking cookies, afternoon walks to the park where we'd feed the ducks. But for the past few weeks, both children had become increasingly withdrawn around me. "Dad, can Aunt Lisa come over instead next Tuesday?" Emma piped up from across the breakfast table, her 7-year-old voice cutting through the morning quiet like a knife. My heart sank. Lisa, my younger sister by 3 years, had always been the fun aunt who spoiled the kids with expensive toys and weekend adventures I couldn't afford on my teacher's pension. My son David looked up from his coffee with surprise. "Grandma Catherine comes on Tuesdays, sweetheart. She looks forward to spending time with you guys." "But Aunt Lisa says—" Emma started, then caught herself, glancing nervously at me before focusing intently on her toast. "What does Aunt Lisa say?" David asked gently, setting down his mug. His dark eyes, so much like his late father's, filled with concern. Emma squirmed in her chair. "Nothing. Never mind." But I couldn't let it go. Something was clearly bothering both children, and Lisa's name kept coming up. "It's okay, honey. You can tell us what Aunt Lisa said." Tommy finally looked at me then, his young face serious beyond his years. "She said you only visit us because Dad makes you, not because you want to. She said you probably wish you could be doing other fun things instead of watching boring kids." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, trying to process what I'd just heard. "Tommy, that's not true at all. I love spending time with you and Emma. These Tuesdays are the highlight of my week." "But Aunt Lisa said you told her that taking care of us feels like work now that you're older," Emma added quietly, tears beginning to well up in her eyes. "She said you're just being nice because you have to be." David's face had gone pale, then flushed with anger. "She said what?" His voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the fury underneath. "Kids, go brush your teeth and get ready for school. Grandma Catherine and I need to talk." As the children scurried upstairs, I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, my legs suddenly unsteady. "David, I never said any of those things to Lisa. I would never—" "I know, Mom." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I know you wouldn't, but we need to figure out why Lisa is telling the kids these lies. This has been going on for weeks, hasn't it? The way they've been acting around you?" I nodded, feeling sick. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, or that they were just growing out of wanting to spend time with their grandmother. "No way. You know how much they adore you, or how much they did before?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture he'd inherited from his father. "I need to call Jennifer. She needs to know about this before she heads into her meetings today." Jennifer Martinez had been my closest friend since we started teaching at the same elementary school 15 years ago. Even after we both retired, we'd maintained our Tuesday morning coffee dates and weekend gardening sessions. She'd become like family to David and the kids, and they often called her Aunt Jen. More importantly, she'd always been my voice of reason during family conflicts. Maybe we should think this through first, I suggested, though my mind was reeling. I don't understand why Lisa would say these things. We've had our differences over the years, but to involve the children... David was already dialing Jennifer's number. Jen, I know you're heading to that garden club meeting, but we've got a family situation here. Can you come by for a few minutes before you go? I could hear Jennifer's concerned voice through the phone, though I couldn't make out her words. David quickly explained what the children had told us, and within minutes, she was knocking on the front door. Catherine, honey, you look terrible, Jennifer said as she bustled into the kitchen, her silver hair still damp from her morning shower. She wrapped me in one of her warm hugs that always smelled faintly of lavender and coffee. Tell me exactly what happened. As I recounted the morning's conversation, Jennifer's expression grew increasingly troubled. She'd known Lisa for years through family gatherings and had always been diplomatic about my sister's tendency toward drama. But this was different. This is deliberately cruel, Jennifer said finally, settling into the chair beside me. Those poor babies, questioning whether their grandmother loves them. And Catherine, you've been torturing yourself for weeks, thinking you'd somehow failed them. But why would Lisa do this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What could she possibly gain from turning the children against me? David leaned against the kitchen counter, his jaw tight with anger. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. This ends today. Wait, Jennifer said, holding up her hand. Before anyone confronts Lisa, we need to understand what's really going on here. Catherine, when was the last time you actually spoke to your sister? Really talked to her? Not just pleasantries at family gatherings? I thought back, trying to remember. It's been months, actually. Maybe since Easter. We've texted about the kids' birthdays and things, but we haven't had a real conversation since... The realization hit me then, a memory I'd pushed aside in the chaos of daily life. The last time Lisa and I had really talked, she'd made a comment about how lucky I was to have such a close relationship with David's children. She'd seemed wistful, almost bitter, when she mentioned that her own grown daughter rarely called and lived 3 states away with her own family. Oh, God, I whispered. I think I know what this is about. And that's when the pattern snapped into place. Jennifer leaned forward, her eyes sharp with understanding. What is it, Catherine? What do you remember? I pressed my palms against my temples, the memory becoming clearer. At Easter, Lisa made this comment about how she wished she could be more involved with children. She said something about me being so lucky to have Emma and Tommy nearby, how they clearly adored me. And then she got quiet and mentioned that her daughter Sarah barely calls anymore. David straightened up from the counter. You think Lisa is jealous? I don't know. Maybe? But that still doesn't explain why she'd be so cruel to the children. The words felt strange in my mouth. My sister, who used to braid my hair before school and shared her Halloween candy with me, deliberately hurting 2 innocent children. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, tapping her fingers against the kitchen table in that way she did when she was thinking through a problem. Catherine, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. Has Lisa been acting differently in other ways? Not just with the children, but in general? I considered this, mentally reviewing our interactions over the past year. Now that you mention it, yes, she's been more... I don't know how to describe it. Critical? She made that comment about David spoiling the kids when he bought them those bikes for Christmas, and she seemed annoyed when I mentioned taking them to the zoo last month. And you said she's been watching them more often lately? David asked, his expression growing more concerned. Yes, especially after school. She offered to help when I started that part-time job at the library. I thought she was being generous, giving me some flexibility with my schedule. My stomach dropped as I realized how naive I'd been. Oh God, how long has she been saying these things to them? How long have Emma and Tommy been carrying this around? Jennifer reached over and squeezed my hand. Honey, we can't change what's already happened, but we can fix this going forward. David pushed away from the counter and began pacing the small kitchen. I still don't understand the endgame here. Let's say Lisa convinces the kids that Catherine doesn't love them. Then what? They turn to her instead? She becomes the favorite aunt? Maybe that's exactly what she wants, I said quietly. The thought made me feel sick. Maybe she wants to be the one they run to, the one they trust. That's twisted, David said, his voice harsh. It's also heartbreaking, Jennifer added softly. If that's what this is about, Lisa must be in a very dark place emotionally. That doesn't excuse what she's done to the children, but it might explain it. I stood up abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. I need to call her. I need to confront her about this right now. Wait, Jennifer said, rising as well. Catherine, you're angry and hurt right now. I understand that completely, but if you call Lisa while you're this emotional, it's going to turn into a fight, and fights don't solve problems. They just create bigger ones. David stopped pacing and looked at both of us. Jennifer's right. We need a plan. We need to think about what we want to accomplish here. I want her to stop lying to my children, I said, my voice rising. I want her to tell them the truth. I want to know why she thought this was acceptable. All reasonable goals, Jennifer said calmly. But how you approach this conversation will determine whether you get those results or just end up with a family war that hurts everyone, especially Emma and Tommy. I sank back into my chair, feeling deflated. So, what do I do? Just pretend I don't know? Keep letting her watch them while she poisons them against me? Absolutely not, David said firmly. But we approach this strategically. First, we talk to the kids some more. Make sure they understand that what Lisa told them isn't true. Then we figure out how to handle Lisa. Jennifer nodded. And we need to consider the possibility that there's more to this story. Maybe Lisa is going through something we don't know about. Maybe there's been some misunderstanding. I stared at her. Jennifer, there's no misunderstanding here. She told two young children that their grandmother doesn't really love them. She made them question their place in our family. How is that a misunderstanding? You're absolutely right, Jennifer said. What she did was wrong, period. I'm just saying that understanding her motivation might help us figure out how to resolve this in a way that protects the children and maybe salvages your relationship with your sister. David sat down across from me. Do you want to salvage it after this? The question hung in the air. Did I? Lisa was my only sibling, the only person left who remembered our childhood, who knew all the family stories and inside jokes. But she had hurt Emma and Tommy, made them doubt something that should have been rock solid in their young lives. I don't know, I admitted. Right now, I'm so angry I can barely think straight. But she's my sister. Being family doesn't give someone the right to hurt children, David said quietly. And it doesn't obligate you to keep toxic people in your life. Before I could respond, we heard the front door open and Emma's voice calling out. Grandma Catherine, we're back from the park. The three of us exchanged glances. The children were home, which meant whatever we decided to do next would have to wait. But as I heard their footsteps approaching the kitchen, one thought crystallized in my mind with startling clarity. I wasn't going to let Lisa watch them anymore. Not until we got to the bottom of this. But what I was about to discover would make everything far more complicated than any of us had imagined. As Emma and Tommy bounded into the kitchen, their faces flushed from the cold and excitement, I forced myself to shift into grandmother mode, despite the turmoil churning inside me. "How was the park, my darlings?" I asked, pulling them both into hugs that I held perhaps a moment longer than usual. "We went on the big slide about 1,000,000 times," Tommy announced, his eyes bright. "And Emma showed me how to do monkey bars." "I only made it halfway across," Emma said, pulling off her mittens. "But Tommy cheered for me anyway." David smiled at them both. "Sounds like you two had a great time. Why don't you go wash up for lunch?" As the children headed toward the bathroom, chattering about their morning adventure, Jennifer caught my eye and nodded toward the hallway. The three of us followed the sound of running water and children's voices. "Emma, Tommy," I called softly. "Before lunch, could you both come back to the living room? I'd like to talk to you about something." Emma appeared in the doorway, her face immediately growing cautious. "Are we in trouble, Grandma Catherine?" "Not at all, sweetheart. I just want to make sure you both understand something important." A few minutes later, we were all settled in the living room. Emma perched on the edge of the sofa next to me, while Tommy climbed onto David's lap. Jennifer sat across from us, her expression gentle but serious. "You know how yesterday you asked me if I really loved you?" I began, looking between both children. Emma nodded slowly. Tommy's thumb found its way to his mouth. "Well, I want you both to understand something, and I need you to really listen. Sometimes adults say things that aren't true. Sometimes they're confused or upset, or they make mistakes with their words. Like when I told Mrs. Patterson that Tommy broke her flower pot, but it was really me?" Emma asked quietly. "Exactly like that," David said. "Sometimes people say things that aren't true, even when they don't mean to hurt anyone." I took a deep breath. "What Aunt Lisa told you about me not really loving you? That was one of those untrue things. It was completely wrong." Tommy pulled his thumb out of his mouth. "But why would Aunt Lisa say that?" The question I'd been dreading. How do you explain adult cruelty to a 4-year-old? "I don't know yet, sweetheart. That's something I need to talk to Aunt Lisa about. But what I need you both to know, right now, is that I love you more than all the stars in the sky. You are my precious grandchildren, and nothing will ever change that." Emma scooted closer to me. "Aunt Lisa said you only pretend to love us when Daddy's around." Jennifer leaned forward. "Emma, have you ever seen your grandmother pretend anything with you?" Emma considered this seriously. "She doesn't pretend when we play tea party. She really drinks the pretend tea." Despite everything, I found myself smiling. "That's right. I don't pretend with you two. When I tell you I love you, I mean it with my whole heart." "But Aunt Lisa sounded so sure," Emma said, her voice small. "She said she knew because she's family." David shifted Tommy on his lap so he could look at both children. "Being family means we should take care of each other and tell each other the truth. What Aunt Lisa said wasn't taking care of you, was it?" Tommy shook his head solemnly. "It made my tummy feel funny." "That funny feeling was your heart telling you something was wrong?" I said. "You should always listen to that feeling." Emma was quiet for a long moment, then looked up at me. "Grandma Catherine, are you not going to be friends with Aunt Lisa anymore?" The directness of the question caught me off guard. "I don't know yet, Emma. What Aunt Lisa said hurt you and Tommy, and it hurt me too. Sometimes when people hurt each other, they need time to figure out how to make things better. Like when Tommy and I have a big fight and we both have to go to our rooms? Emma asked. Something like that, Jennifer said. Sometimes grown-ups need time apart to think about what happened. Tommy slid down from David's lap and came over to me, climbing up beside Emma. Grandma Catherine, will you still watch us after school? My heart clenched. Of course I will, sweetheart. Nothing about that is going to change. But Aunt Lisa usually picks us up, Emma pointed out with the logic only children possess. David and I exchanged glances. We hadn't worked out these logistics yet. We'll figure out a new plan, David said. The important thing is that Grandma Catherine will still be taking care of you. Will Aunt Lisa be sad? Tommy asked, his little face creased with worry. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that his aunt might be sad, but that her feelings weren't his responsibility to fix? Aunt Lisa's feelings are for grown-ups to worry about, Jennifer said gently. Your job is to be kids and let the grown-ups take care of grown-up problems. Emma leaned against my arm. I'm glad you really love us, Grandma Catherine. I'm glad too, sweetheart. After lunch, while the children napped, the 3 of us reconvened in the kitchen. David was pacing again, and I could see the anger he'd been holding back for the children's sake. She has to be confronted, he said. I can't stand the thought of her thinking she got away with this. I agree, I said. But we need to think about timing, and we need to think about what we want to accomplish. Jennifer poured herself another cup of coffee. What's your relationship with Lisa been like recently? Have you noticed any changes in her behavior? I thought back over the past few months. She's been different, more critical maybe. She made a few comments about how I spoil the children, about how I'm more involved in their lives than I was with David when he was little. David stopped pacing. She said that? I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured she was just, I don't know, maybe feeling left out somehow. Left out of what? David asked. I spend a lot of time with Emma and Tommy. Lisa doesn't have children. Maybe she feels like I'm more invested in my role as grandmother than I ever was as her mother. Jennifer set down her cup. That could be part of it. But even if Lisa is dealing with some kind of jealousy or resentment, taking it out on children is completely unacceptable. The thing is, I said slowly, I think she believes what she told them. When she said I don't really love them, I think she actually thinks that's true. David stared at me. How could she possibly think that? Because she's comparing it to something. Maybe to how she felt I treated her when she was young. Maybe she thinks because I'm more hands-on with Emma and Tommy than I was with either of you kids, that means my love for them is somehow different or more real. That's ridiculous, David said. You were a great mother. I was a different mother than I am a grandmother, I admitted. I was younger, more stressed, more worried about doing everything perfectly. With Emma and Tommy, I can just enjoy them. Jennifer nodded slowly. So Lisa might be interpreting your joy in grandparenting as evidence that you were somehow holding back your love when you were parenting her and David. But even if that's true, David said, it doesn't excuse what she did. No, it doesn't, I agreed, but it might explain it. We sat in silence for a moment, the complexity of the situation settling over us. So, what's the plan? David asked finally. I'm going to call Lisa and ask her to come over tomorrow, I said, after the children are in school. We're going to have this out, once and for all. Jennifer looked concerned. Do you want one of us here when you talk to her? I think it should just be me and Lisa, at least at first. This is between sisters. But as I reached for my phone to make the call, it buzzed with an incoming text message. From Lisa. And what I read made my blood run cold. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. The message was simple, but the timing felt ominous. I know you're probably upset. We need to talk. I'm coming over. What is it? David asked, noticing my expression. I held up the phone. Lisa, she says she's coming over. Jennifer leaned forward. Right now? She doesn't say when, just that she's coming. I set the phone down on the coffee table like it might bite me. How does she know I'm upset? Unless what? David prompted. Unless Emma or Tommy said something to her. Maybe they mentioned our conversation today. The thought made my stomach churn. Those poor children, caught in the middle of something they shouldn't have to understand. David ran his hands through his hair. This is actually good, Mom. Better to hash it out face to face than over the phone. Is it, though? I stood up and walked to the window, peering out at the quiet street. I'm not sure I trust myself to stay calm if she tries to justify what she said to them. You don't have to stay calm, Jennifer said quietly. You have every right to be angry. But anger won't fix this, and it definitely won't help Emma and Tommy. I turned back to face them. They're the ones who matter here. They're the ones who got hurt. The sound of a car door slamming made us all freeze. I looked out the window again and saw Lisa walking up the front path, her shoulders rigid with what I recognized as her defensive posture. She's here, I announced unnecessarily. David started to stand. Do you want us to leave? I considered it for a moment. Part of me wanted to face Lisa alone, to have the kind of honest conversation we probably should have had years ago. But another part of me felt like I needed witnesses, people who could help me stay grounded in reality if Lisa tried to twist things around. Stay, I decided. At least for now. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by Lisa's familiar pattern of knocking. She'd always done that, even as a child. Ring the bell, then knock anyway, as if she didn't trust the first signal to work. I opened the door to find my sister standing there with her arms crossed, her face a mask of controlled emotion. She looked past me and saw David and Jennifer in the living room. I thought we were going to talk privately, she said. We are, eventually. But first, I think you owe an explanation to all of us. Lisa stepped inside without being invited, the way she always had. An explanation for what? The casualness in her voice, the way she was pretending she didn't know exactly why I was upset, made something snap inside me. For telling my grandchildren that I don't really love them. Lisa's face didn't change, which somehow made it worse. If she had looked surprised, or guilty, or defensive, at least I would have known she understood the gravity of what she'd done. Instead, she just shrugged. I told them the truth as I see it. David shot to his feet. Are you kidding me right now? Sit down, David, Lisa said coolly. This isn't about you. It is about me, he said, but he didn't sit down. Those are my children you upset. Your children who spend more time here than at their own house, Lisa replied. Your children who get more attention from Mom than you ever did, or than I ever did. There it was, the heart of it, laid bare in my living room like a wound that had been festering for years. So you decided to hurt them because you're jealous? Jennifer asked, her voice incredulous. Lisa finally showed some emotion, her cheeks flushing. I'm not jealous. I'm realistic. Mom treats those kids like they're made of gold. She never treated us that way. Because I was their mother, not their grandmother, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. There's a difference, Lisa. Is there? Or is it just that now you have the luxury of loving them without having to discipline them, or worry about them, or actually be responsible for them? The words hit harder than I expected, because there was truth in them. Being a grandmother was easier than being a mother had been. I could enjoy Emma and Tommy in ways I hadn't always been able to enjoy David and Lisa when they were small. But that didn't make Lisa's actions right. Even if that's true, I said slowly, how does telling two innocent children that their grandmother doesn't love them solve anything? For the first time since she'd arrived, Lisa looked uncertain. They needed to understand that it's not real. The way you dote on them. It's not the same as actual love. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Lisa seemed to realize how terrible that sounded. David broke it first. You told my 6-year-old daughter that her grandmother's love isn't real because you're still angry about your own childhood? I'm not angry about my childhood, Lisa said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then what is this about? I asked. Because I'm trying to understand, Lisa. I really am. But I can't wrap my head around why you would hurt those children to make whatever point you're trying to make. Lisa sat down heavily in my armchair, suddenly looking exhausted. You want to know what this is about? It's about watching you light up every time they walk in the room. It's about seeing you patient and playful and present with them in ways I don't remember you ever being with us. It's about feeling like I'm watching the mother I always wished I had, just 30 years too late. The raw pain in her voice made my chest ache. But before I could respond, she continued. And yes, maybe I thought if they understood that this version of you isn't the real you, that you're just playing grandmother because it's easier than actually being responsible for them, maybe they wouldn't take it so personally when you inevitably disappoint them too. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Not just what she'd done, but why she'd done it. She was so convinced I would hurt Emma and Tommy the way she felt I'd hurt her, that she decided to hurt them first. Lisa, I said quietly, what did I do to you? What did I do that was so terrible that you would punish my grandchildren for it? She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who always seemed to need more than I knew how to give. You were never enough, she whispered. No matter what I did, no matter how good I was, you were always worried, always stressed, always somewhere else in your head. And now I watch you with them, and I see what I never got. I see you actually enjoying being with children instead of just enduring it. The truth of her words hit me like a physical blow. Because she was right. I had been worried and stressed and often overwhelmed when David and Lisa were young. I had endured a lot of moments I should have enjoyed, but that didn't change what needed to happen next. I understand why you're hurt, I said. And I'm sorry for the ways I failed you when you were little. But Lisa, what you did to Emma and Tommy is unforgivable unless you're willing to fix it. She looked up sharply. Fix it how? You're going to tell them the truth. You're going to explain that you were wrong, that I do love them, and that your feelings about the past don't change that. And if I refuse? The question hung in the air like a challenge. David and Jennifer both looked at me, waiting to see how I would respond. Then you won't be welcome in this house anymore, I said quietly. And you won't have any contact with Emma and Tommy until you're ready to undo the damage you've done. Lisa stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to decide if I was bluffing. But then her phone buzzed with a text message, and when she looked at it, her face went completely white. What is it? I asked. She looked up at me with something close to panic in her eyes. It's Emma. She says she has something important to tell me, and she's walking over here right now. My heart started pounding. Emma was coming here now, while everything was exposed and raw between us adults. The timing couldn't have been worse. "What does the text say exactly?" David asked, moving closer to Lisa. Lisa's hands were shaking as she read from her phone. "Aunt Lisa, I need to talk to you about something really important. I'm walking to Grandma's house right now. I'll be there in 10 minutes. "Oh, God," Jennifer whispered. "She probably wants to talk about what you told her, about Margaret not loving them." Lisa looked like she might be sick. "What do I do? What do I say to her?" "You tell her the truth," I said firmly, though my own stomach was churning with anxiety. "This is your chance to fix what you broke. But she's just a child. How do I explain that I lied to her about something so important? How do I tell her that I was wrong without completely destroying her trust in all adults?" David sat down heavily in the chair across from us. "Lisa, you should have thought about that before you decided to mess with a 7-year-old's head." "That's not helping right now," I said, though I understood his frustration. "We need to figure out how to handle this in a way that protects Emma." Jennifer walked over to the window and peered out. "I don't see her yet, but she walks fast for a little kid. We probably have 5 minutes to figure this out." Lisa stood up abruptly and started pacing. "Maybe I should leave. Maybe you should talk to her, Mom. Tell her I had to go somewhere." "Absolutely not," I said. "You're not running away from this. Emma is coming here specifically to talk to you. She needs to see that adults can admit when they're wrong and make things right." "But what if I make it worse? What if I say the wrong thing and confuse her even more?" I could see the genuine panic in Lisa's eyes, and despite everything, I felt a stab of sympathy for her. She had created this mess, but she was also clearly terrified of the consequences. "You start by telling her you made a mistake," I said gently. "You tell her that sometimes adults say things when they're upset that aren't true, and that you're sorry." "And then what? How do I explain why I would lie about something like that?" David leaned forward. "You don't dump your psychological issues on a 7-year-old, Lisa. You keep it simple. You made a mistake. You're sorry, and Grandma loves her very much." Jennifer turned from the window. "I see her. She's at the corner. She's got that determined walk she gets when she's made up her mind about something." My heart clenched. Emma was such a thoughtful child, and I could only imagine what had been going through her mind since Lisa planted those poisonous seeds of doubt. "Okay," Lisa said, taking a shaky breath. "Okay, I can do this. I have to do this." But as we heard Emma's footsteps on the front porch, Lisa grabbed my arm. "Mom, what if she asks me directly if you love her? What if she wants proof? What if my saying I was wrong isn't enough?" Before I could answer, we heard Emma's voice calling through the front door. "Grandma? Aunt Lisa? I know you're in there. I saw Uncle David's car." There was a pause, and then her voice came again, smaller this time. "Please, I really need to talk to someone." The vulnerability in her voice broke my heart. Lisa's face crumpled, and I could see the full weight of what she had done hitting her. But then Emma said something that made us all freeze. "Aunt Lisa, I know what you told me about Grandma wasn't true, and I think I know why you said it." Lisa's face went completely white, and she sank back onto the couch as if her legs had given out. David and Jennifer exchanged glances, and I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. The wisdom in Emma's young voice was both heartbreaking and astounding. I walked slowly to the front door, my hand trembling slightly as I turned the lock. Emma stood on the porch in her school clothes, her backpack still slung over one shoulder. but her expression was far more mature than any 7-year-old should have to wear. Her dark hair was slightly messed from the walk, and her cheeks were flushed, but her eyes held a clarity that made my throat tight. "Come in, sweetheart," I said softly, stepping aside. Emma walked past me into the living room, and I watched her take in the scene. Lisa hunched on the couch looking miserable. David sitting forward with concern etched on his face. Jennifer standing by the window with her arms crossed protectively. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut, and Emma seemed to absorb it all. "Hi, Uncle David. Hi, Mom," she said quietly, then turned to face Lisa directly. "Hi, Aunt Lisa." Lisa looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "Emma, I need to talk to you about what I said yesterday." "I know." Emma set her backpack down carefully by the door and walked over to stand in front of Lisa. She didn't sit down, and something about her posture reminded me so much of Jennifer when she was determined to have a difficult conversation. "You told me that Grandma doesn't really love me. That she just pretends because she feels sorry for me because my dad left." The words hung in the air like a physical blow. I had to grip the back of the nearest chair to steady myself, hearing those poisonous lies spoken in Emma's innocent voice. Lisa's face crumpled. "Emma, that's not true. None of that is true, and I should never have said it." "I know it's not true," Emma said simply. "I figured it out on my way home yesterday. Want to know how?" Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face now. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, but I could hear the hurt underneath. "I remembered that when I had pneumonia last winter, Grandma slept in the chair next to my bed for 3 nights. She didn't have to do that. Mom was there, but Grandma stayed too because she was worried." She paused, looking at me. "People don't do that unless they really love someone, right, Grandma?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. "That's right, honey." Emma turned back to Lisa. "And I remembered how Grandma always remembers exactly how I like my pancakes, and she keeps those special markers I like at her house, even though they're expensive. And she comes to every single one of my school things, even the boring ones." David cleared his throat roughly, and I saw him wipe his eyes. "So then I started thinking about why you would say something that wasn't true," Emma continued, and Lisa looked like she wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. "And I remembered how you got really quiet and sad when Grandma was talking about helping me with my science project. You got that same look you get when other people talk about things you wish you had?" Jennifer stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Emma, what do you mean?" Emma glanced at her mother, then back at Lisa. "Like when Mom talks about her job, and Aunt Lisa gets quiet because she wishes she had a job she liked. Or when Uncle David talks about his new house, and she gets that look because she wishes she could move out of her apartment." The room fell completely silent. Emma's perceptiveness was stunning and heartbreaking at the same time. "I think," Emma said carefully, "that maybe Aunt Lisa wishes she had someone who loved her the way Grandma loves me. And maybe that made her feel bad, so she tried to make me feel bad too." Lisa let out a sob and buried her face in her hands. "Oh God, Emma, I'm so sorry. You're right, and that makes it even worse. I was jealous, and I took it out on you, and that's inexcusable." Emma stood there for a moment, watching Lisa cry. Then, to everyone's surprise, she walked over and sat down on the couch next to her aunt. "It's okay to be sad about not having enough people who love you," Emma said. "But you do have people who love you, Aunt Lisa. We all love you. That's why everyone looks so scared right now. They're scared because someone they love did something that hurt someone else they love, and they don't know how to fix it." Lisa looked up at Emma with wonder and shame warring in her expression. "How are you so wise?" And how can you be so kind to me after what I did?" Emma shrugged, suddenly looking more like the 7-year-old she was. "Mom says that hurt people sometimes hurt other people without meaning to. She says it doesn't make it okay, but it helps to understand why." I felt tears streaming down my face as I watched my granddaughter navigate this adult situation with more grace than most adults could manage. But then Emma's composure finally cracked a little. "I was really scared though, Aunt Lisa. For a whole day, I was scared that maybe I was wrong about Grandma loving me. It made my stomach hurt, and I couldn't eat dinner." Lisa reached out tentatively and took Emma's hand. "I am so sorry. That fear you felt, that's on me. I put that in your head, and I hate that I did that. It's okay, I figured out it wasn't true. But Aunt Lisa," Emma's voice got very serious, "what are we going to do about you feeling so sad and left out?" The question caught everyone off guard. David leaned forward. "What do you mean, kiddo?" Emma looked around the room. "Well, if Aunt Lisa is sad because she doesn't think she has enough love, then we need to fix that, right? We can't just say sorry and pretend it's fine. We need to make sure she knows she's loved too." Jennifer sat down on Emma's other side. "That's very thoughtful, sweetheart. But that's really something the adults need to work on." "But I have an idea," Emma said, and then looked directly at Lisa with an expression that made my breath catch. "What if you moved in with us?" The silence that followed Emma's suggestion was deafening. I watched as 3 generations of my family processed what the youngest among us had just proposed. Lisa's eyes went wide. "Emma, sweetheart, that's very kind of you to think of, but I couldn't possibly—" "Why not?" Emma interrupted, and I could see her mind working. "You said you feel left out and sad? And Mom is always saying how hard it is to manage everything by herself since Dad moved out. You could help each other." Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. "Emma, honey, it's not that simple. Adult living situations are complicated and—" "But is it because you don't want Aunt Lisa there?" Emma asked, with the directness only children possess. "Because if it is, that's okay. You can just say that." Jennifer looked stricken. "No, that's not— I mean—" She turned to look at Lisa, then back at Emma. "It's not about not wanting her there. It's about whether that would actually help anyone, or if it might make things more complicated." I found myself leaning forward in my chair. "What do you think about it, Lisa?" Lisa looked absolutely overwhelmed. "I think Emma's heart is in the right place, but I think I've caused enough disruption to this family. Moving in with Jennifer and the kids, that seems like it might be asking for more problems." "But what if it wasn't?" Emma pressed. "What if it helped? You're sad and lonely, and Mom gets tired trying to do everything, and Max and I would have someone else around who loves us? That seems like it could work." Jennifer ran her hands through her hair. "Emma, sweetie, when adults live together, there are a lot of things to consider, like space, and money, and privacy, and different ways of doing things." "Do you not trust Aunt Lisa anymore?" Emma asked quietly. The question hit like a physical blow. Jennifer's face went pale, and Lisa made a small, wounded sound. "That's—" Jennifer started, then stopped. She looked at Lisa, really looked at her. "I don't know how to answer that right now, Emma. Trust isn't just broken or fixed instantly. It takes time to rebuild." Emma nodded seriously. "That makes sense. But how do you rebuild trust if you don't spend time together?" I couldn't help but marvel at my granddaughter's logic. "She has a point there." Lisa shook her head. "But living together isn't the only way to spend time together. And honestly, Jennifer has every right not to trust me right now. What I did was—" She looked at Emma and Max. What I did was really wrong. It might take a long time for your mom to feel safe having me around you kids again. Max, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. Would you do it again? Do what again, buddy? Lisa asked. Tell us lies about mom loving us? Would you do that again? Lisa's face crumpled slightly. No, Max. Never. I promise you, I would never do anything like that again. Then why can't you live with us? Max asked with 7-year-old logic. If you promise not to lie to us anymore, and mom needs help, and you're lonely, then it seems like it would work. Jennifer looked at me helplessly. Mom, help me out here. This is complicated, I suggested. Yes, it is. But maybe that doesn't mean it's impossible. Jennifer stared at me. Are you seriously considering this? I held up my hands. I'm not saying anyone should make any decisions today. But Emma and Max are asking good questions. Lisa, you've been struggling since your divorce. Jennifer, you've been overwhelmed trying to manage everything alone. The kids want their family to be whole and happy. But what about boundaries? Jennifer asked. What about the fact that Lisa violated our trust in a major way? Doesn't that matter? Of course it matters, I said. But the question is whether you work through that separately or together. Lisa stood up suddenly. This is too much. Jennifer, I've already caused you enough stress. The last thing you need is to feel pressured into taking me in like some kind of charity case. Is that what you think this would be? Emma asked. Charity? Lisa looked down at her. What else would it be, honey? I'm the one who messed up. I'm the one who needs help. Emma stood up too, looking remarkably determined for such a small person. But Mom needs help too. She cries sometimes at night when she thinks we can't hear. And she gets really tired, and she worries about money. Jennifer's face flushed. Emma, those aren't things you need to worry about. But I do worry about them, Emma said. Max does too. We hear you on the phone with Grandma talking about how hard everything is. Max nodded. You said last week that you wished you had more hands and more hours in the day. Jennifer looked mortified. I didn't realize you two were listening to all of that. We listen to everything, Max said matter-of-factly. That's how we figured out that Dad wasn't coming back, even before you told us. The pain that crossed Jennifer's face was unmistakable. I watched Lisa see it too, and something shifted in her expression. Jennifer, Lisa said softly, are you really struggling as much as the kids think you are? Jennifer's composure finally cracked. Of course I am. I'm a single mom with 2 kids, working full-time, trying to keep up with everything. And She stopped, looking around at all of us. I can't believe we're having this conversation. Lisa, you just admitted to psychologically manipulating my children, and now we're talking about you moving in? When you say it like that, it does sound crazy, Lisa admitted. Emma crossed her arms. But people do crazy things when they're hurting, right? That's what you did, Aunt Lisa. And that's what Mom's doing too, trying to do everything by herself when she doesn't have to. The room fell silent again. I watched my daughter and my other daughter process what Emma had just said. Finally, Jennifer spoke. Even if, and I'm saying if, this wasn't completely insane, there would have to be rules. Serious rules. Lisa straightened. What kind of rules? Jennifer looked at her children, then at me, then back at Lisa. I don't know. I can't believe I'm even thinking about this. Emma's face lit up with hope, but before she could speak, Max asked the question that made everyone freeze. What happens if it doesn't work out? The question hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Max's practical 8-year-old mind had cut straight to the heart of what we were all thinking, but were too afraid to say out loud. Jennifer sat back down heavily, running her hands through her hair. That's exactly what I'm worried about, Max. What if we try this and it makes everything worse? What if we can't make it work, and then we're all hurt even more than we are now? Lisa's face went pale. You're right to worry about that. I've already proven I can hurt you and the kids without even meaning to. But you did mean to, Emma said quietly. At first, you meant to hurt Mom by saying those things to us. The directness of Emma's statement made Lisa flinch. You're right. I did mean to, at the beginning. I was so angry and hurt that I wanted Jennifer to feel what I was feeling. And now? Max pressed. Are you still angry at Mom? Lisa looked at Jennifer, really looked at her, taking in the exhaustion around her eyes, the way her shoulders sagged even when she was trying to sit up straight. I'm angry at the situation. I'm angry at myself. But looking at your mom right now, seeing how hard she's been working to take care of you two. No, Max, I'm not angry at her anymore. Jennifer's voice was barely above a whisper. I never wanted you to struggle, Lisa. When Michael and I got divorced, I worried about how it would affect you too. You loved him. He was your family. He was, Lisa agreed. But he made his choice when he walked out. And I made mine when I decided to take it out on you and the kids instead of dealing with my own pain. Emma moved closer to her mother. Mom, when you and Dad got divorced, you told us that sometimes people who love each other can't live together anymore. But that doesn't mean they stop caring about each other. That's right, Jennifer said carefully. So couldn't it work the other way too? Couldn't people who were hurting each other maybe learn to help each other instead? The wisdom coming from my 10-year-old granddaughter was staggering. I watched both my daughters absorb what Emma had said. Max, ever practical, wasn't ready to get swept up in the emotional moment. But what about the rules Mom mentioned? What if Aunt Lisa breaks them? Jennifer looked at Lisa. What do you think should happen if you break the rules? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. I think I should leave. No arguments, no second chances. If I mess this up, I should pack my things and go. Where would you go? Max asked. The question clearly caught Lisa off guard. I don't know. I'd figure something out. That's not really a plan, Emma observed. If you don't have anywhere else to go, then you might try really hard not to break the rules just because you're scared of being homeless. But that's not the same as actually wanting to follow the rules. Jennifer stared at her daughter. Emma, how did you get so insightful? I listened to everything, remember? Emma said with a small smile. And I've been thinking about this a lot since Aunt Lisa told us the truth. What have you been thinking? Lisa asked. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, looking remarkably composed for someone her age. I think you need to want to be here for the right reasons. Not because you need a place to live, but because you want to help our family and you want us to help you get better. And I think, Max added, that if it doesn't work out, we all need to agree that it's okay. Like, we tried, and it didn't work, but that doesn't mean we hate each other or anything. Jennifer looked at me with amazement. Are you hearing this? When did our kids become so wise? They've been watching and learning from everything that's happened, I said. They've seen the worst of this situation, and now they're trying to find a way to make something better come from it. Lisa wiped her eyes. You two are incredible. Both of you. I don't deserve the chance you're offering me. Maybe it's not about deserving, Emma said. Maybe it's about whether you really want it and whether you're willing to work for it. Jennifer took a deep breath. Okay, let's say we seriously consider this. Lisa, I need to know that you understand what you did wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice you made multiple times over several months to deliberately hurt my children in order to hurt me. Lisa nodded. I understand that completely, and I understand that earning back your trust, all of your trust, isn't something that's going to happen quickly. What would the rules look like? Max asked. Jennifer thought for a moment. Well, first, absolute honesty. No secrets, no lies, nothing said behind anyone's back that wouldn't be said to their face. I can do that, Lisa said. Second, if you're having feelings of anger or resentment, you talk to me directly, not to the kids. Yes? Emma raised her hand like she was in school. Can I suggest a rule? Jennifer smiled despite herself. Go ahead. I think Aunt Lisa should go to therapy or counseling or something. Because the things she said to us, that wasn't normal angry behavior. That was like, deeper than that. Lisa looked stunned. You're absolutely right, Emma. The way I acted, the things I convinced myself were okay to do, that's not healthy. I should talk to someone about why I thought any of that was acceptable. And, Max added, maybe we should all talk to someone, as a family. Because this affected all of us, not just Aunt Lisa. Jennifer looked overwhelmed. Family therapy. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. We're all dealing with the aftermath of this. So, if we did this, Lisa said slowly, I'd be moving in, but also working on myself, and we'd all be working on healing together? It sounds complicated when you put it like that, Emma said. But maybe it's supposed to be complicated. Maybe the easy solutions wouldn't actually work. I had been mostly quiet, watching my family navigate this incredibly difficult conversation with more maturity and insight than I had expected. But now I felt I needed to ask the hard question that no one else had raised. Lisa, I said gently, what happens if you start feeling angry again? What happens the first time Jennifer has to ask you to watch the kids when you don't want to, or when you disagree about household responsibilities, or when you're having a bad day and the old resentments start creeping back in? The room went silent. It was the question that would determine whether this arrangement had any real chance of success. Lisa stared down at her hands for a long moment, and I could see her really wrestling with the question. When she looked up, her eyes were watery, but determined. I think about that constantly, she admitted, because I know myself well enough to know that I will get angry again. Maybe not at the same level, but anger is going to happen. We're going to disagree about things. I'm going to have bad days. Emma shifted closer to Max on the couch, both of them listening intently. The difference is, Lisa continued, I need to have a plan for when that happens. I need to recognize the warning signs in myself before I get to the point where I think it's okay to hurt people. Jennifer leaned forward slightly. What would that look like practically? Well, I've already started thinking about it. When I feel that anger building, especially if it's directed at you, I need to remove myself from the situation before I say or do something harmful. I could go for a walk, call my therapist, write in a journal, whatever it takes to process those feelings without involving the kids. But what if you don't catch it in time? Max asked. What if you're already angry and we're right there? Lisa took a deep breath. Then I need you all to feel safe calling me out. If I'm starting to act in ways that feel familiar or scary, you need to be able to say something, and I need to listen and step back immediately. That's a lot to ask of kids, I said gently. Emma and Max shouldn't have to be responsible for managing your emotional reactions. You're absolutely right, Lisa agreed quickly. They shouldn't have to be my emotional police. But I also think they should know they have permission to speak up if they feel unsafe or uncomfortable. The primary responsibility is mine to monitor myself. Jennifer was quiet for several minutes, clearly thinking through the implications. I keep coming back to the fact that you maintained this behavior for months, Lisa. You had so many opportunities to stop, and you didn't. How do I trust that you'll catch yourself next time when you didn't catch yourself before? I don't know if I can give you a guarantee that would satisfy you, Lisa said honestly. All I can tell you is that going through this, seeing what I did to Emma and Max, seeing how I almost destroyed our family, it's changed something fundamental in me. The shame I feel isn't just guilt about getting caught. It's horror at who I became. Emma spoke up unexpectedly. Can I ask you something, Aunt Lisa? When you were saying those things to us about Mom, did it feel good in the moment? Lisa flinched like she'd been slapped. That's a really hard question, Emma. I need to know, though, because if it felt good to hurt us, then I'm more scared about it happening again. The silence stretched out uncomfortably before Lisa finally answered. In the moment, it felt like relief, like I was finally getting back at your mom for all the ways I felt she'd hurt me. But it didn't feel good exactly. Even while I was doing it, part of me knew it was wrong. I just convinced myself that my anger was more important than protecting you. So you knew it was wrong the whole time? Max asked. Yes. And that makes it worse, not better. I can't claim I was just carried away by emotion. I made deliberate choices to prioritize my feelings over your well-being. I watched Jennifer process this admission. Her face was hard to read, but I could see her struggling with whether Lisa's honesty made the situation better or worse. I think, Jennifer said slowly, that if we were going to try this arrangement, we'd need to start with a trial period, maybe 3 months, with very clear boundaries and expectations. What kind of boundaries? Lisa asked. You'd be contributing financially, but you wouldn't have any authority over the kids. No disciplining, no making rules, no making decisions about their schedules or activities. You'd essentially be a tenant who happens to be related to us. Emma and Max exchanged glances. Would that feel weird? Emma asked her mom. Probably, but weird might be necessary while we rebuild trust. And what happens if the 3 months don't go well? I asked. Jennifer looked at Lisa directly. Then you'd need to have a backup plan ready to go. Because I won't put Emma and Max through another prolonged situation where they're walking on eggshells. I understand, Lisa said. I'd start looking for other housing options immediately, so if this doesn't work, the transition would be quick and clean. Max had been unusually quiet for the last few minutes, and I noticed he was fidgeting with the edge of a throw pillow. Finally, he looked up at his aunt. Aunt Lisa, I have to tell you something. Even if Mom says yes to this, and even if you do everything right, I don't think I'm going to trust you for a long time. Like, maybe years. Is that going to make you angry? The question hung in the air like a challenge, and I realized Max was essentially testing Lisa right now, in real time, to see how she'd handle a difficult emotional situation. Lisa's reaction would tell us everything we needed to know about whether this arrangement had any chance of working. Lisa took a deep breath, and I found myself holding mine. This was it. The moment that would determine whether my sister had truly changed, or if she was still the person who would lash out when faced with uncomfortable truths. Max, Lisa said quietly, I'm not angry at all. I'm grateful that you told me. If anything, I'm relieved that you're being honest about where you stand. She leaned forward slightly, but didn't move closer to him. You have every right not to trust me. Trust isn't something people owe you just because you're family or because you say you're sorry. Trust is something you earn through your actions over time. I watched Max's shoulders relax slightly. He'd been braced for a defensive response, for Lisa to get upset or try to argue with his feelings. Years sounds about right, Lisa continued. Maybe longer. And if I get frustrated with that timeline, or if I start pressuring you to forgive me faster, I hope you'll tell me. Because that would mean I'm still putting my comfort ahead of your well-being. The room fell quiet again, but it felt different this time. Less tense, more thoughtful. Jennifer was studying Lisa carefully. That's exactly the kind of response that makes me think this might actually work, she said. But I need to know. What happens on the days when you're frustrated that the kids aren't warming up to you? What happens when Max is polite but distant? Or when Emma doesn't want to talk to you? Those are going to be hard days, Lisa admitted. But they're consequences I created, not problems for the kids to solve. If I'm having trouble with those feelings, I need to handle them myself or find appropriate help, not take them out on Emma and Max. Emma spoke up for the first time in a while. What kind of help? Well, I've already found a therapist. I had my first appointment last week, actually. I need to understand why I thought it was okay to hurt kids when I was angry at adults. That's not normal, and it's not something I can just promise not to do without really working on it. This was news to me, and I felt another small shift in my thinking. Lisa was taking concrete steps, not just making promises. What did the therapist say? I asked. Lisa's face colored slightly. That I have some patterns of thinking that aren't healthy. When I feel hurt or rejected, I tend to look for ways to hurt back instead of dealing with my feelings directly. She said it's probably something I learned young, but that doesn't make it excusable. Are you going to keep seeing her? Jennifer asked. Every week for now. Maybe longer. Max was still fidgeting with the pillow, but his expression was more curious now than guarded. Aunt Lisa, can I ask you something else? Of course. If we do this trial thing, and if you end up living here, what happens if you and Mom get in a fight? Like, a real fight about something important? It was another test question, and I realized my son was far more perceptive than I'd given him credit for. He was essentially asking Lisa to commit to specific behavior before she was in the heat of the moment. That's a really smart question, Lisa said. Jennifer, how would you want me to handle that? Jennifer thought for a moment. I think if we're having a serious disagreement, we should table it until the kids aren't around. And if we can't resolve it ourselves, we might need to get help working through it. I agree, Lisa said. And Max, if you ever feel like I'm bringing the kids into adult conflicts, I want you to tell me immediately, even if it feels awkward or scary to speak up. What if you get mad that I'm calling you out? Then I'm not ready to live here, Lisa said simply. If I can't handle feedback from you kids about how my behavior affects you, then I haven't changed enough to be trusted with this arrangement. I found myself genuinely impressed by Lisa's responses. They weren't perfect, and they didn't erase what she'd done, but they suggested a level of self-awareness I hadn't seen from her before. Jennifer, I said, what do you think? My friend was quiet for a long moment, looking between Lisa and the kids. I think we try it, she said finally. 3 months, with the understanding that any of us can call it off if it's not working. Even us? Emma asked, pointing between herself and Max. Even you. This is your home, too. Max nodded slowly. Okay, but Aunt Lisa, I meant what I said about the trust thing. I know you did, and I'm going to try to earn it back, even if it takes years. As I sat there looking at my family, my sister, my best friend, my children. I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Not the naive hope that everything would be magically fixed, but the realistic hope that maybe, with enough work and honesty, we could find our way to something better than what we'd had. There would be difficult days ahead. There would be moments when old patterns tried to resurface. But for the first time in years, I believed we might actually make it through to the other side.